Hi, my name is Dr. Michelle Cotty. I am a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, and today is session 5 in this series. And today we're going to talk about criticism. First, let's review our topics from the weeks prior. Last session, we talked about goal setting and time management. So, one of our goals is to spend 5 minutes a day examining situations as they arise, paying attention to our automatic thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, any physical feelings that arise when we have strong emotions, and then to identify cognitive distortions and replace those negative thoughts with positive statements. In one of the examples from a previous week, we talked about two individuals that received the same negative feedback from a boss. Those individuals had different automatic thoughts, which evoked different emotions, which then led to different behaviors. If you remember, one person avoided their boss while the other person felt motivated and wanted to do a better job, so he went and asked what he could do better. And their outcomes would be very different under those circumstances. So, one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is dealing with criticism. So, today we're going to work through a worksheet on how to deal with criticism. All of us have been criticized at some point in our lives, and being able to accept criticism is an important part of maturing. The word criticism is an ancient Greek word. It stems from an ancient Greek word, which describes a person who offers an observation that's not judgmental, just an observation that's reasonable. So we need to be able to accept criticism maturely, and we need to be able to accept feedback in that form from other people about how we're acting. But there are different types of criticism. So some types of criticism are constructive, and that's designed to be helpful and non-threatening. That way we can all learn and grow. That feedback is valid, and it's true criticism. Hey, I really liked the way you wrote that report, but I think that you could have done better if you would have focused on your spelling. Destructive criticism is not valid or untrue criticism, and it's not given in a way that's helpful or in a way that I would want to receive it. For example, it can be embarrassing and hurtful. That report was horrible. Your spelling was atrocious. So you can see those are two different types of criticism. Why do we respond to criticism the way we do? Well, a lot of times it comes from childhood. If we did not experience any criticism as a child and then we first experience it as an adult, it might be soul crushing and we might feel really devastated. If we received very constructive criticism as a child, we might cope well with criticism as an adult. And if we were criticized like harshly and punitively, then we can feel that criticism is hurtful and rejecting. Often we feel like we're criticized as a whole person rather than our behavior. For example, if we made a mistake when we were a child and we were told we're stupid, like our entire person was stupid, it feels like a rejection. We don't know how to change. On the other hand, if we were told, well, that was a silly thing to do, then it's our behavior, not our entire selves, that's being criticized. And those are two separate things. Well, the behavior was stupid, not us, and we can change the behavior. So we need to think about how we were criticized when we were a child. So let's take a minute. How do you respond to criticism? So there's some non-assertive ways of responding to criticism. Do you become confused, defensive, act silly, ignore it and just hurt inside, get internally angry and stew over it, retaliate with anger, blame, maybe you shut down or just leave? Think about the last time you were criticized and how you reacted. And I'm going to go through this worksheet quickly, and then I want you to take some time. It'll probably take an hour to go through it on your own. I'm just going to kind of give you an overview. Passive responses to criticism. If we're passive, It's difficult to respond well to criticism. We might run and hide and feel hurt and confused or just agree, like, yeah, you're right, I'm stupid. This kind of response can lead to depression, anxiety, low self esteem. We feel like the world is a critical place and we all agree with the criticisms. We might laugh it off and criticize ourselves, but in the long run, that's not very healthy. Maybe we have an aggressive response to criticism. So if somebody says something about us being late and we are responding aggressively, then we feel that that's a personal attack. And if we feel attacked, then we might be defensive and go on attack ourselves. How dare you? I'm not late. You're the one that's always late. This type of response can lead to conflict and increased aggression, which in turn can lead to depression and low self-esteem. Assertive response is the healthy response. So think back to our nonviolent communication. We want to speak assertively. We can identify the difference between constructive and destructive criticism and respond appropriately. We want to know that our behavior is being criticized, not our entire self. And we don't want to get defensive or angry or hurt and run away. Instead, we want to stay calm and accept the criticism without feeling a lot of negative emotion. But sometimes our unhelpful beliefs about criticism get in our way. So here's some cognitive distortions that might pop up if we're criticized. If I'm criticized, it means I'm stupid. If they criticize me, they must not like me anymore. They're right. I did it wrong. I can't do anything right. I am a failure. So when you feel criticized and you have an automatic thought, pay attention to that automatic thought and refer back to this worksheet and ask yourself, am I having a cognitive distortion that pops up anytime I'm criticized? When we respond assertively to criticism, we have helpful thinking. If there's something wrong with what I've done, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with me as a person. It means there might have been something wrong with that behavior. What can I learn from this criticism? I have the right to let somebody know if their behavior has hurt, irritated, or upset me. And I could give direct feedback, which could be loving and helpful. So we need to have more helpful thinking. There are different ways we can respond to criticism. If it's valid, then we can just accept it. If I come home and I'm crabby about the dishes in the sink, and one of my children say, "Whoa, you seem like you're in a bad mood," I might say, "Yep, I'm going to go take a time out on the porch. I'm tired. You might not want to talk to me until tomorrow." So I would accept that criticism. If I was criticized in a way that was not true, so perhaps it says, somebody says your desk is very messy, you are very disorganized. I think I'm organized, but my desk might be messy. I could accept part of it. Yeah, it's true. Not really very tidy. In order to accept the criticism, we just openly agree with a part in that example. So we calmly agree with the criticism of a negative quality, for example, a messy desk, without apologizing or letting myself feel bad about it. So, for example, someone might say, "You have a very messy car," which would be true in my situation because I use it like a pickup truck. And I would say, "Yes, it's true. I do have a very messy car." I don't feel badly about that because I'm remodeling a house. So it is true, but it doesn't mean that I'm an unorganized or messy person. Negative inquiry. Negative inquiry is another specific type of criticism. If someone criticizes you, but you're not sure if it's valid or constructive, you can ask for more details. If somebody says, "You'll find that difficult, won't you, because you're shy," and you don't think that you're shy, you could say, "In what ways do you think that I'm shy?" If it's constructive, that information can be used constructively and communication will be improved. But if criticism is used manipulatively, I can't say that word, manipulatively or destructive, then the critic is put back on the spot. Like, what do you mean exactly? but it's done politely, right? So we want to deal with destructive criticism by assertive responses. So kind of boundary setting. So if somebody says you're always late and you're not always late, you can disagree. Well, I'm not always late. I may be late on occasion, but I'm certainly not always late. So just stay calm. That's setting a boundary that you're not accepting that criticism. As we talked about earlier, you can check in using negative inquiry to see what they meant. And then we can make a decision. So can you clarify what you mean by I'm shy? When somebody is potentially aggressive or difficult, we still want to keep internal peace. So I love the word equanimity because it means peace in the midst of chaos. And if we are able to keep inner peace, especially in these situations, we can handle them better. So if somebody is negatively criticizing you, you can agree in part. So if somebody's criticizing you that you're always late, you can agree in part, I'm sometimes late. You can agree in probability. You haven't gotten a job and you are completely unproductive. Oh, sorry, that would be an example of agreeing in part. Yes, it's true, I don't have a job. Probability is if somebody says, if you don't floss your teeth, you'll get gum disease and be sorry for the rest of your life. Your response is, you're right, I could get gum disease. Agreeing in principle. If somebody says that's the wrong tool for a job, a chisel like that will slip and mess up in the wood. You should use a different tool instead. You could say, you're right, if the chisel slips, it would mess up the wood. You're not really agreeing that you're going to slip and mess up the wood or that you should use a different tool, but that could happen. Don't forget, you can always take a time out. If somebody's criticizing you and you have a strong emotion, sometimes it's best to say, I need to process this. Can we talk about it when I have a few days? I'll let you know when I'm ready. Sometimes the best response is not talking right away. If somebody comes up and says something really awful and they criticize you, one of my favorite things to say is, that's an interesting perspective, or I don't accept that, and just walk away. Remember, our job is to keep internal peace. So sometimes it's nice to have these key phrases. Other things to remember: respond to the words, not to the tone of the criticism. Often people can come across as aggressive, and we need to practice separating maybe how we're interpreting their tone of voice with what they're actually saying. Don't respond immediately if you are not calm. And if you feel criticized, stop. Don't react until you know for sure what's going on. Are you really getting criticized? Maybe you're mind reading. Maybe you have a cognitive distortion and you're not being criticized at all. You can ask the other person, hey, what did you mean by that? And once you've decided if it's really a criticism, then you can decide, is it valid or not valid? And you can respond using one of the techniques above. I'd like for you to go through this worksheet, and there's also a section on how to give constructive criticism. So our goal this week is to see, are there moments that come up when we either criticize somebody or we feel criticized? And in those moments, are we using our nonviolent communication skills that we've used before? Are we staying calm and keeping internal peace? Or do we have cognitive thought distortions? And those distortions are causing a strong emotion and a behavior that we may not be proud of. Again, remember, we're just trying to spend 5 minutes a day making positive changes. And this week, we have a positive affirmations coping tool. Thanks again for being here.